1857. So, summoning discontent. In 1757, after the Battle of Plassey, the British led the first steps towards getting power in northern India. After in 1857, sorry, after in 1857 took place the major revolt, which was a product of the character and politics of colonial rule after 1757, and after with which noteworthy with changes took place in the British policy of ruling over India. The cumulative effect of British expansionist policy, economist, economic exploitation, and administrative innovation over the years had adversely affected the position of all rulers of Indian states, Sipai, Zamindars, peasants, and traders, artisans, Pandits, Maulavis, etc. The simmering discontent burst in the form of violent storms in 1857, which shook the British Empire in India to its very foundations. So 1857, which took the British Empire in India to its very foundations, and so revolt 1850 and 1857 revolt happened. So next, however, the period between 1857 and 1757 and 1857 was not the all peaceful and trouble phase. It's a series of sporadic popular outbursts in the form of religious, political violence, tribal movements, peasant uprisings, and agrarian riots and civil rebellion, enhanced revenue demand, and even in famine years caused anger. Many times movement against local many moneylenders turned into rebellion against the company rule. As the moneylender had the support of the police, British interference, his native religious traditional customs caused also caused resentment and resulted in rebellions almost from the very early days of the early East India Company's rule. Rebellion and uprising occurred for various causes of indifferent religious. Some of the movements continued even after the 1857 revolt. Major revolts took place in the south, east, west, and northeastern regions, which were suppressed with brutality by the company. So, the 1857 revolt, the causes of the revolt of the 1857, like those of earlier uprising, emerged from all aspects, socio-economic, cultural aspects. So, we discuss the major causes of 1857 revolt. Okay, and political, economic, and political of daily exercise of Indian population, cutting through all sections and classes. These causes and discussed below. Economic causes: the colonial policies of the East India Company destroyed the traditional economic fabric of the Indian society. The peasantry were never really to recover from the dispensabilities imposed by the new and highly unpopular revenue settlement improvised by the heavy taxation. The peasants restored to loans from the moneylenders, traders at usurious rates, the latter often evicting the former from their land on non-payment non-payment of debt dues. Thus, moneylenders and traders emerge as the new landlords, while the Scotch and landless peasantry and rural indebtedness and has continued to plague Indian society even this day. To this day, as the older Jomindari system was forced to disintegrate, British rule was also meant majorly to the artisans and handicraft people. The annexation of Indian states by the company cut off their major source of patronage. The native rulers and the nobles who could not now afford to the patrons of the craft workers added to this. British policy discouraged Indian handicraft and promoted British goods. So here Jamindari system is in, and British policy discouraged Indian handicrafts and promoted British goods. Moneylenders and traders emerged, new landlords. Okay, added to this British policy, the British policy discouraged Indian handicrafts and promoted British goods. The highly skilled Indian craftsmen were forced to look for alternate source of employment that had hardly existed and existed as the destruction. Karl Marx, 1853, of Indian handicraft was not accompanied by the development of modern industries. The Indian trade and mercantile class was deliberately equipped with the British, who imposed high tariff duties on Indian-made goods. At the same time, the import of British goods in India into India attracted low crafts, thus encouraging their entry into British by mid-19th century and export of cotton and silk textiles from India, but practically come to an end. Free trade one way, that is the refusal to impose protective duties against machine-made goods from Britain supply killed Indian manufacture. Machine-made goods from Britain suppliers simply killed Indian manufacture. Zamindari, the traditional landed aristocracy, often saw their land rights forfeited with frequent use of a coup or onto by the administration. This resulted in a loss of status for them in the villages. In Awadh, in the storm center of the revolt, 21,000 talukdars had their estates confiscated and suddenly found themselves without a source of income, unable to work, ashamed to beg, and condemned to penury. And these dispossessed talukdar seized the opportunity presented by the Sepoy revolt or to oppose the British and try to regain what they had lost. So here is Talukdar Awadh. In Awadh, the storm center of the revolt, 21,000 Talukdar had estates confiscated and suddenly work. And then industry increased or the pressure on agriculture and land, which could not support all the people. The lopsided development resulted in pauperization of the country. In general, political causes, the East India Company's greedy policy of aggrandizement, accompaniment by broken plates and promises resulted in the contempt for the company and loss of political prestige, besides causing suspicion in the minds of almost all the ruling princes in India. Although such policies of the effective control, subsidiary alliance, and doctrine of lapse, and the right of the succession was denied to Hindu princes. Mughals were humbled when on Prince Faruquddin's death in 1956, whose succession had been recognized conditionally by Lord Dalhousie. Lord Canning announced that the next prince on succession would have to renounce legal title and the ancestral Mughal palaces. In addition to the renunciations agreed upon by Prince Fakiruddin, the collapse of rulers destroyed aristocracy also adversely affected those sections of the Indian society which derived their sustenance and from cultural and religious pursuit. Administrative causes, rampant corruption in the company's administration, rampant, so especially among the people, police, petty officials, and lower local lockouts was major cause of of discontent. Indeed, it is the view of many historians that the rampant corruption we see now in India is a legacy of the company rule. Also, the character of the British rule important. A foreign and alien to look to it in the eyes of Indians, a kind of absentee sovereignty, social religious cause, racial overtones, and a superiority complex characteristics the British administrative attitude towards the native Indian. So racial overtones. Okay, native Indians population. The activities of succession missionaries who followed the British flag in India were looked upon with suspicion by Indians. The attempts at social religious reform at such as the abolition of support to widow marriage and women's education were seen by a large section of the population as interference in the social and religious demands of Indian society by outsiders. These fears were compounded by the government's decision to tax mosques and temple lands and making laws such as religious disabilities act 1856 and which modified Hindu customs. For instance, declaring that so religious disabilities act 1856 so it modified Hindu customs. And declaring that a change of the religion did not debar a son from inheriting the property of his heathen father. Influence of outside events, the revolt 1857 coincided with certain outside events in which the British suffered serious losses. The first Afghan War 1838 to 1842 and Punjab Wars 18 first Afghan War and second is Punjab Wars 1845 to 1849. So it is so new. So and Crimea War 1854 to 1856 and this had obvious psychological repercussion. The British were seen to be not so strong, and it was felt that they could be defeated. Punjab War 1845 to 1849, Crimea War 1854 to 1856, First Afghan War 1838 to 1842. So discontent among the Sipa, the condition of services of the company's army and cantonments increasingly come into conflict with the interreligious beliefs and the prejudices of the Sipai. Restrictions on wearing caste and sectarian marks and secret rumors of proselytizing activities of the chaplains, other maintained of the company's expenses, which meant that Indian expense interpreted by Indian shepherds who were generally conservative by nature as interference in the religious affairs to the religious Hindu of the life of the time crossing. This is meant loss of the caste in 1856. Lord Canning government passed the General Service and Enlistment Act, of which decreed that all future recruits to the Bengal Army would have to give an undertaking to serve anywhere their services might be required by the government. This was resentment. The Indian Sipahi were equally unhappy with the emoluments compared to the British counterpart. The more immediate cause of the Sipahi dissatisfaction was the order that they would not be given the foreign service allowance and serving in Sindh or in Punjab. The annexation of the Awadh home in whom many of the Sipahis further implement their feelings. The Indian Sipahi was made made to feel subordinate on every step, and was discriminated against racially and in. So the discontent of the Sipahis was not limited to the military matters. It reflected the general dissentiment with the opposition of the British rule. The Sipahi, in fact, was a peasant or in uniform, whose consciousness was to divorced from the of the rural population. The army voiced grievances there other than its own, and the movement spread beyond the army. Observers is Gopal. Finally, there had been a long history of revolts in the British India Army in Bengal 1764, Vellore 1806, Barakpur 1825. So long history of the revolt. Bengal at 1764, Vellore 1806 and Barakpur 1825, and during the Afghan War 1838 to 1842. He mentioned just a few beginning and spread of the revolt, the spark, the reports about the mixing of bone dust in atta floor, and the introduction of the Enfield rifle enhanced the Sepoy growing dissatisfaction and with the government. The glazed wrapping paper of the cartridge of the new rifle had to be beaten off before loading, and the grease was reportedly made of beef and pig fat. The cow, the cow was sacred to the Hindus, while the pig was too taboo for the Muslim. The army administration did nothing to allay these affairs, and the sepoy felt their religious was in grave danger. The greased cartridges did not create a new cause of the discontent in the army, but supplied the occasion for the simmering discontent to come out in the open. Started Mirat. The revolt began at Mirat, 1858 km from Delhi on 10 May 1857, and then gathering force rapidly soon embraced a vast area from the Punjab and the north, and the Narmada in the south of Bihar, south to Bihar, in the east of Rajputana in the west. So before the Mirat incident, there were rumbling of resentment in various cantonments in the 19th Native Infantry at Berhampur, which refused to use the newly introduced Enfield rifle and broken out in mutiny in February 1857, was disbanded in March 1857. His young Sipahi, the 34th in the Native Infantry, Mangal Pandey, went a step further and fired at the sergeant major of his unit at Barakpur. He was overpowered and executed on 8 April, while his resignment was disbanded in May. The 7th Awadh regiment, which defied its officers on May 3, met with a similar fate, and then came in the explosion of Admiral on April 24. 90 men of the 3rd Native Cavalry refused to accept the greased cartridge, and on May 9, 85, of them were dismissed, sentenced 10 years imprisonment and put in fetters. This sparked off a general mutiny among the Indian soldiers stationed at Mirat. The very next day, on May 10, they released their imprisoned commanders, killed their officers, and unfurled the banner of revolt. They said for the Delhi after sunset. Choice of Bahadur Saha as symbolic head. In Delhi, the local infantry joined them, killed their own European officials, including Simon Fraser, the political agent, and seized the city. Lieutenant Willoughby, the officer in charge of the magazine at Delhi, offered some resistance but was overcome. The aged and powerless Bahadur Shah Zafar was proclaimed the European Emperor of India. Delhi was soon to become the center of the Great Revolt on Bahadur Shah, its symbol. This spontaneous raging the last Mughal king to the leadership of the country was recognition of the fact that long region of Mughal dynasty had become the traditional symbol of India's political unity. With this single fact, the Sepoy had transformed a mutiny of soldiers into a revolutionary war, while all Indian chiefs who took part in this revolt had strength to proclaim their loyalty to the Mughal emperor. It also signified that the rebels were politically motivated, though religious was a factor at the broad outlook. The levels of was not influenced by religious identity, but by the perception of the British as called the common enemy. Next, Bahadur Shah, after initial vacillation, wrote letters to all chiefs and rulers of India, urging them to organize a confederacy of British Indian states to fight and replace the British regime. The entire Bengal army from rose the revolt, which spread quickly. Awad, Rohilkhand, and sorry, the Bundelkhand, Central India, and large parts of Bihar and Eastern Punjab shook of British authority. Civilians ran the revolt of the Sepoy was accompanied by the rebellion of the civil population, particularly in the northwestern provinces, and their accumulated grievances found immediate expression, and they rose in Messi to give hand to their opposition to British rule. It is the widespread participation in the revolt by the peasantry, the artisans, the workers, the shopkeepers, and the laborers, reminders, religious mendicants, priests and civil servants, which gave it real strength as character of a popular revolt where the peasants and petty zamindars gave free expression to their grievances by attacking the moneylenders and zamindars who had displaced them from the land. They took advantage of the revolt to destroy the moneylenders and account books and debt records. They also attacked the British established law courts, revenue officers, they seized revenue records and police station. And according to one estimate of the total number of about 1,50,000 men who died fighting the English in North, 1 lakh were civilians. And within a month of the capture of Delhi by the rebels, and revolt spread the different parts of the country, storm centers and leaders of the revolt. At Delhi, the nominal the nominal and symbolic leadership belongs to the Mughal Emperor Bahadur Shah, but the real command law lay with a court of soldiers headed by the General Bhagat Khan. So soldiers headed by General Bhagat Khan, who had led the revolt of Bareilly troops and brought them to Delhi. The court consisted of 10 members, army, six from the army, and four from the civilian departments. So here the courts conducted the affairs of the state in the name of the empire. Emperor Bahadur Shah was perhaps the weakest link in the chief chain of leadership. The revolt, his weak personality, old age, and lack of leadership qualities created political weakness at the nerve of center of the revolt and did incalculable damage to it. At Kanpur, the natural choice was Nana Sahib, the adopted son of the last Vaisal Bajirao II. He was refused the family and title and banished from Pune and was living near Kanpur. Nana Sahib expelled the English and from Kanpur and proclaimed himself the Peshwa. acknowledged Bahadur Shah as the Emperor of India and declared himself to be his governor. Sir Hagwiller, commanding the station, surrendered on June 27, 1857, and killed on the same day. Next, Begum Hazrat Mahal took over the regions of at Lucknow, where the rebellion broke out on June 4, 1857, and popular sympathy was overwhelmingly in favor of the deposed Nawab Harson Birjis Qadir was proclaimed the Nawab, and the regular administration was organized with important offices, offices shared equally by Muslims and Hindus. Henry Lawrence, the British resident, the emperor, inhabitants, and a few hundred loyal Sipai took shelter in the residency. The residency was besieged by the Indian rebels, and Sir Henry was killed during the siege. The command of the besieged garrison devolved. The early attempts of Sir Henry Havel and Sir James Outeron and the recover Lucknow met with no success. Finally, Sir Colin Campbell was new commander-in-chief, evacuated the Europeans with the help of the Gorkha regiments in March 1858. The city was finally recovered by the British, but guerrilla activity continued by till September of the same year. And Barili Khan Bahadur, a descendant of the former ruler of Rahil Khan, was placed in command. Not enthusiastic about the present pension being granted by the British, he organized an army of 40,000 soldiers and offered stiff resistance to the British. In Bahadur, in Bihar, the revolt was led by the Kunwar Singh, the Demindar of the Jagdishpur, an old man of his servantage. He nursed a grudge against the British who had deprived him of his estates. He unhesitatingly joined the Sifis when they reached Ara from the Dinapur. Maulvi Ahmadullah of Fajapurabad was another outstanding leader of the revolt. He was native of Madras and had moved to Fajabad in the north, where he taught a steep battle against British troops. He emerged as one of the revolt's acknowledged leaders once broke out in Awadh in May 1857. The most outstanding leader of the revolt was the Rani Lakshmi Bai, who assumed the leadership of the Sipai as the Jhansi. Lord Dalhousie, the Governor General, had refused to allow her adopted son to succeed to the throne after her husband Raja Gangadhar Rao died, and had annexed the state by the application of the infamous doctrine of lapse, drive and out of Jhansi by British forces. She gave the battle cry, मैं अपनी झांसी नहीं दूंगी. I shall not give away my Jhansi. She was joined by Tatia Topi, a close associate of Nana Sahib. After the loss of Kanpur, the Rani of Jhansi and Tatia Topi marched towards Gwalior, where they were held by the Indian soldiers. Thus, Sindhia, the local ruler, however, decided to side with the English and took so the Tatia Topi and Jhansi Rani, you can see in Kanpur towards Gwalior, they were held by the Indian soldiers, Sindhia, and however decided to side of the English and took shelter at Agra. Nana Sahib was proclaimed the Peshwa, and plans were chalked out for a march up into the south. Gwalior was actually recaptured by the English in June 1858. The sacrifices made by the common masses were immense and innumerable. The name of the Sahamal, a local villager in Pargana, Baraut, Bhagatpur, Bhagpat, Uttar Pradesh, is most notable. He organized the headmen and peasants of 84 villages referred as Churasi Das, Churasi Das, and Bhagavad marching at night from the village to village and urging people to rebel against the British army. Even the people attacked government buildings, destroyed the bridges over the rivers, and dug up metalled roads, particularly to stop government forces coming into the area, and partly because bridges and roads were viewed as symbols of British rule. Sahamal sent supplies to the mutineers in Delhi and prevented all official communication between British and headquarters and Meerut. He made his headquarters at the Bangalore of an irrigation department on the banks of the Jamuna and supervised Hall of Justice resolving disputes and dispending judgments. He also organized an effective network of intelligence for a short duration. The people of the area felt that British rule was over and their own had come. Unfortunately, in July 1857, Samuel was killed with the English officer Dunlop. It is alleged that Samuel's body was cut into pieces and his head displaced on only July 21, 1857 to terrify the public for more than a year. However, the rebels carried on their struggle against heavy odds suppression of the revolt. The revolt was finally suppressed. The British captured Delhi in September 20, 1857, and after prolonged and bitter fighting, when Nicholas, the leader of the siege, was badly wounded and later succumbed to his injuries. Bahadur Shah was taken prisoner. The loyal princes were captured and butchered on the spot publicly. Spotted point blank range and by Lieutenant Huntsman Hudson himself. The emperor exiled to Rangoon where he died 1862. Thus the great house of the Mughals was finally and completely extinguished. Terrible vengeance was wreaked on the inhabitants of Delhi. With the fall of Delhi, for the focal point of the revolt disappeared. Sorry. Next time we discuss another. Okay, so thank you.